We welcome you to another in our series of conversations with the University of Texas here on TexasSports.com. My name is Craig Way. Glad to have you with us and pleased to be joined by Texas Longhorns softball coach Mike White. Coach, we probably would have envisioned having an opportunity to talk under totally different circumstances. I think that goes without saying here. First and foremost, I'm sure Longhorn Nation wants to know how you're doing, how your family's doing, and then we'll get to your extended family in terms of the Longhorn softball team that unfortunately was able to complete this series. First of all, how are you doing, your family, and how are you navigating all of this new normal that we're all having to deal with?
Well, thanks, Craig. Thanks for the opportunity for the interview and to reach out to everybody. We're doing well, as well as can be expected. It definitely is a new norm. You got to think about everything you do and, where you go. And you got to be very careful out there because it's like something you can't see, which is difficult, I'd much rather face someone throwing a 100-mile-an-hour rise ball than face this academic. But, we're doing well. The family's doing great. My 3 daughters are in Austin and everyone's doing well. So hopefully it continues to do that. And, as we wait for everything to play out.
I think it goes without saying what I'm about to ask you because I'd seen a similar interview or a question posed to Anthony Grant, who was the head coach of the Dayton Flyers, who would have been one of the number 1 seeds in the NCAA basketball tournament. Bill Self, the Kansas head coach as well. And the natural question that would come to a team that was ranked number 1 as your team was at the end of the season is how incomplete is the feeling, so to speak, for you, for your staff, for your players, on that eternal question of what might have been given where you were and where you were playing and how well you were playing at the time?
Yeah, it's certainly a surreal moment. I mean, I had my bags packed for Alabama right by the door there, and we got the phone call, it's off, and then you go, okay, it's just for a week, and now it's for a month, and now it's the whole season, and now it's a championship. It just continued to snowball, as we kind of think about it. It snowballed forward, and there's nothing you could do about it. So it was very difficult. Now you start playing the what-if game, and we felt good about where we were at. Obviously, Miranda Ellis was throwing well. We were hitting the ball well, 1 through 9. It was a difficult job making up the lineup. The only concern we really had was the pitching behind Miranda. But Shea O'Leary was starting to step up. Courtney Day had done a great job for us throughout the year. So we felt very, very, very good about our position. Felt like we were getting stronger as we went along. It's just unfortunate now that, 3 of our seniors are not going to come back and be able to finish their careers at Texas on the field. That's a tough situation, and we really feel for those 3 athletes. But we do have 3 athletes coming back, and, of course, we feel good about next year now.
I was going to ask you about your seniors, and I'll get to them certainly in a moment. One more question about the what might have been thing, because we can all play that game forever and everything. But do you feel, of all the teams you coach, and you know what the grind is like throughout the course of the regular season and into regionals, super regionals, Oklahoma City for the Women's College World Series, when you factor all that in and put that up against how your team was put together, how they were playing, how well they were responding to being coached, how all of the elements seemed to be as good as they were. Is there any doubt in your mind that your team was good enough and had a real shot at winning, not only competing for, but winning a national championship?
Yeah, well, comparing it to, the teams in the past, we were a different blend of team. We didn't quite have as much power as some of those other teams that we had at Oregon. And as I said, Miranda Ellis is as good a pitcher as I've coached, and, she's a true all-round player. So it's just a matter. And it's like every single time you go out there, we were ranked number 1 twice going into the World Series, and, didn't get it done both times. And a lot of it comes down to luck. It's not always the best team that wins. It's the team that plays the best on the day, and it happens to be that week. Are things going your way? Do the players produce when their pressure's on? And does the coaching staff produce? And, that was kind of like what I was trying to look forward to, was getting another shot at that. And, our real focus was just getting back to Oklahoma City to see what we could do.
You mentioned six seniors, three of whom won't be returning, three who will be. I wanted to give you a chance to kind of break that down a little bit and talk about each of these seniors and what they meant to you all along on the ride before your arrival at UT, and what they've meant since they've been Longhorns as well. What your thoughts on these six seniors? Let's start first of all with the contributions of the three who have made their decision and won't be returning before we get to the ones who have made their intentions known to return for 2021.
Yeah, sure. Well, Tuesday Demogoshian, she was in her senior year, and she's contributing a lot as a role player for us. Mostly as back up in the outfield and a pinch runner for us. But she was a lot more to the team as far as on the bench. Was really making sure everybody was staying up. She knew her role was, and she did a great job of that. And if you ever met Tuesday, her smile is electric. And she was in her majoring in communications and journalism. And one of the last year there, she had her camera out there, and she was just great with that. So it was a lot of fun to have her there. Again, it's just tough to see them not be able to finish it out in the field. Caitlin Slack, to me, was having a career year. It was tough, having new coaching staff come in and having to learn the new systems and everything else, and new batting and new hitting coaches. But I thought she really played well this year. And again, she was brought into the role she had, which was a defensive player first and offensively second. So if I had Miranda Ellis, I would match her up, and I would typically flex for Slack where she didn't hit. But when she had an opportunity to hit, I think she put down just about every single sacrifice bunt we had, hit a couple of big home runs. And so her contributions were huge, and I think she was going to play a big part in our success, or would have been a success this year. And then, of course, last, Hathaway was, when I first met her last year, no one hit the ball harder on the line than her. I mean, it was like she was trying to knock the wall over in right field, and it was just bullet after bullet. And it was fun to see her. And I think she was on a path. I know Washington's on that path too now, but kind of like was leading the club in doubles. Was just hitting a lot of doubles for us. And of course, she had the knee injury, so it's hard for her. It would have been 6 years, and that's tough to ask of anybody just chasing a 4-year undergraduate degree. So, I was really, it was a tough for them, but I certainly understand it. As a parent, you start looking at it and you go, what's best for them? Outside of softball, we don't have the pro ranks, so you don't have to worry about that as much. You're not going to make a lot of money out of it. So she had to think about her next career, which was, getting on with her life. So, those are the three that are not coming back.
And as the three who have said yes, they want to be a part of this, and want to get what were your thoughts? First of all, when you went through the process after the announcement from the NCAA, what went through your mind about who might return, who might not return, and the conversations that you had with those student athletes to arrive at where you were with the three who decided that they weren't coming back and the three who definitely wanted to be back?
Well, I definitely, the first one you look at is Miranda Ellis. I mean, not only one of the top pitchers in the country, but one of the best left-hand power hitters. And so that was a huge, I mean, she didn't even think twice about it. It wasn't even, I'm going to think about this. It was, I'm coming back. Now it was just a matter of getting the decision from the NCAA. And, and fortunately they came through. And Cristo Conte was a huge push behind that. And of course, we got to thank a lot of the conferences for sticking behind that one. And then, of course, you start looking down it and you go, okay, Caitlin Washington, she is kind of like an unsung hero for us, as far as a contributor, not only on the field. It's kind of weird because you see her at bat and sometimes she would, not look very good. And then all of a sudden, boom, there's a big hit. Or she'd get frequently down 2 strikes and she'd battle her way back. And in the clubhouse, I call her the glue of the club. And in other words, she transgresses lines. There's always clicks, sort of small clicks on teams. You tend to get into groups you like better than others. And she transgressed all those groups. And so I think it's huge to have her back, helping in the clubhouse, because my belief is you have to have a strong clubhouse to have a strong team. And so she's a big part of that. And then, of course, Shannon Rhodes. I mean, Shannon, I've been fortunate enough to coach her for 4 years and going into her 5th year next year. And I don't think there's a player with more talent out there than Shannon. But I just think that, she's kind of like made it tough on herself sometimes. She gets frustrated that she doesn't do as well as she wants, and it tends to hurt her next performance. So I think hopefully with that 1 year experience, she's going to come back out and have that career year and become an All-American like I think she deserves to be.
The other thing, Mike, that comes to mind is how a coach makes this all work, because this is all new. Like we said, this is uncharted territory in so many ways, even in the larger picture of what the whole world is going through. But with the specifics of spring sports and the return of that season of eligibility across the board, how does a coach like yourself make this all work with the seniors you have coming back, with the underclassmen as well as the juniors who retain that season eligibility, and you'll have new faces coming in next year? How you have begun, and your staff also, to manage all that and to plan for 2021?
Well, it's definitely, it's going to be very difficult, especially down the road. I mean, this is a 4 year decision. You're going to have those freshmen out for another 3-4 years now, and that impacts incoming classes and how much money you're going to have to allocate, because at this point, only the seniors get whatever they decide to come back on doesn't go against our limits. And the same with baseball too, it doesn't count against the number limits. So fortunately, we'll carry a bigger roster next year. It looks like about 23 players. But I don't think that's going to be a huge problem for us. If we have to, we may have to look at, a Rudy rule, where you kind of maybe not travel everybody. And that's going to be competition amongst itself. So that's something we got to look at. How's it impact the budget? Going forward, what do we get through a football season? Because that impacts how much money we have. So it's a snowball effect. There's a lot of things you got to take into account. And as far as recruiting, I think we're okay for the next 2 years, but the year after that, there's going to be some tough decisions made, and we have to get some buy-in from a lot of people. And those decisions don't have to be made, thankfully, right now, but it's definitely something we're looking at going forward.
It's safe to say you have to project that far out. You have to project beyond 1-2 years. You have to look on down the road because of what you will have in terms of roster retention with the players, the student athletes you've already targeted for recruiting over beyond the next couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got to look at, the impact it's going to have on you. What positions do you need? For example, if you have, say 2 scholarships from a junior class, now that pushes out 1 more year, that's 2 less scholarships you will have, because you've got to kind of allow for those. Maybe not so much in the senior year, because what I understand it right now, you may not have to bring them back, or you can renegotiate that last year. But again, we're still waiting to get rulings on that. But it is something we're being well aware of. Thankfully, with the new recruiting rules, we only have 2021s, which are juniors right now, that have commitments from. So we can't get commitments. Now, if this had happened, say 3 or 4 years ago, when you're committing 8th graders, you can imagine some of the phone calls that are going to happen.
Wow. Yeah. One other question that I'd asked of Coach Pierce about this is something that they talked about from the baseball perspective, is that there could be a boon, if you will, to the junior college programs across the country because of the backlog and the way some of this would go. He said some of that would have to do with the way the major league draft worked, because there was only going to be 5 rounds and some freshmen would do that. And so there might be more of an influx in the JUCO level. That issue obviously doesn't rest with softball, but do you see also junior colleges being able to benefit with this, as well as what your own program might?
Well, it's not only that, but it could be, I think the portal's going to swell, the transfer portal, because it's come down to a situation, do I have a five-star freshman coming in, and I have a senior player, would-be senior player, that maybe was just a roster player? Obviously you're not going to forego a 5-star recruit for a roster player. And so that's the decisions you're going to have to make. And so, where do they go if they want to finish their careers? Well, if you transfer, you're going to have to go in the portal. So I can see that swelling. I'm not so sure about the JUCO ranks, but definitely, there's going to be some good players out there, and there's going to be a lot of choices to be made, a lot of decisions. But first and foremost, let's get through this year. Let's get back to some normalcy, before we start looking too far ahead.
And that's where I was going to go with our final question, was to talk about the getting back to normalcy. And before you do that, obviously we're all doing the shelter in place and all those sorts of things because of that and because of the quarantining. What types of conversations do you have with your players about how they stay fit, how they maintain levels of nutrition, as well as their fitness, as well as their skill set, so that there's not an erosion of skill level, that by the time you do get them all back, that you don't feel like you're having to start at ground zero, that everybody will be able to recover where they were or pretty close to it pretty quickly?
Exactly. Well, the first thing we're working on is fitness, is strength and conditioning. And you've got to find out what equipment they're able to have at home, because you gym, or get a gym membership. This doesn't be any good. So what do you have access to? And fortunately, our strength, Coach Mel has sent out some literature to our players. Find out what they actually have, and then giving them some programs that they can work on themselves to stay in shape. And after that, as coaches, we're allowed to have some video with them per week. So we're going to kind of approach it from that. First, we're going to have our end of year meetings, which is kind of weird. You didn't get to that, but you got to let these players know exactly, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what we need them to work on, and then outline a plan for them to follow here through to next August when we can meet again. So that's where we're at. And so the next stage for us is to have those meetings, outline the strengths and weaknesses that they have to address.
Safe to say that when you've had the conversations with your players, that you've had to emphasize the whole let's be patient, let's do the right thing, and making sure we're not getting too antsy about this. We hear all the stories about students, not student athletes per se, but college students being antsy, and a lot of those, unfortunately, were paying the price by contracting the virus, by going on spring break and all that other stuff. You have a different group entirely. Student athletes are a different discipline entirely. But is there also kind of that reinforcement that goes on from you and the staff about making sure they stay patient through the process, understanding there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, but we all have to go through all of this first?
Absolutely. We have to listen to what people are telling us. And, as a country, we're paying the price a little bit here. I think that sometimes you feel like you're invincible, and that's a problem with youth sometimes. And those people that went on the spring break, you feel like, first of all, we had some misinformation about it doesn't affect the youth as much. And now we know that's not true. And now we should be wearing face masks and gloves. And so it's a little bit too late for a lot of us. But so we're going to have to get through this pandemic here, and hopefully it'll peak pretty soon. We want to see the flattening of that curve, and all of us need to do the best we can to help out with that by not spreading the virus and being in contact with people that possibly have it. And you've got to treat everybody like they have the virus. That's the biggest thing, including yourself. And so we've got to be, like everyone says, we're in this together, and we've got to work through it together.
Well, Mike, we appreciate you taking the time to do this, and we wish you and your family continued health, and hopefully that same thing goes through with the Longhorns football team as well, and that they continue to move forward to that time when we can get them all back on the field, and look forward to a great 2021. But we appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Well, thanks, Craig, and I just want to reach out to the whole Longhorn Nation. And I've my second year here, and I made a great choice. The support here is fantastic. It's a great institution, and I'm looking forward to getting back to work here pretty soon. So, hook 'em.
Thank you, Coach. All right, we thank you for joining us for another series in our series of conversations right here on TexasSports.com.